Hi, everyone. Our guest today, Brooke Santina, has returned to tell us a fascinating account of where she worked for the Nevada Corrections as a follow up interview about her book titled Dish Rags to Dirt Bags. Well, welcome again, Brooke. It is a double honor to have you on the show once again.
Oh, I'm just happy to be back.
This is fun. I'm going to give Brooke the entire floor. Go for it.
Oh, sure. Well, the idea of coming back, we talked about me being a deputy sheriff and writing a book about it. And this time, you and I had a really nice chat one day, and I was explaining to you my connection to the whole OJ thing with the prisons. And so I wanted to share some of that with your listeners because people are fascinated about OJ Simpson. And when I got the job after I was a deputy sheriff, I got my degree in speech communications, and then I got the public information officer position for Washoe County. And then I took that to the prison system and was the public information officer for all of Nevada Department of Corrections. So public information officer is actually a really important job, and they certainly needed one at the prison system because anytime the media wants an information, and if they don't get it from the agency itself, they will get unauthorized information. They will report on whatever they can get. So it's really important, especially as a government agency like law enforcement, to have a public information officer who then feeds that information to the media. Then they get accurate stuff. They're not misrepresenting the organization. It's just smart. And so they didn't have one for a while. I've gone to, as the public information officer, I've gone to homicides. I've gone to, we had an FBI investigation in the middle of the jail at one time. I've had all kinds of crazy situations, SWAT call-outs where streets were closed and everybody was focused on one house that a person was barricaded in with multiple firearms. I mean, I have to be there to help the media to differentiate what's happening. Oh. So sometimes they'll hear something on a scanner and they'll think, oh my gosh, and it's not what they think. And so then you have to go, no, this is what's happening. Or, oh yeah, this is a big deal and we're on our way and I'll meet you over here at this corner and we'll set up certain distance away from the action so that we don't inadvertently get shot or what have you. It's really important to have a public information officer, especially with a law enforcement agency. And the Department of Corrections is definitely a law enforcement agency. People don't think about it because it's prison. It is completely law enforcement. They are like the final say of law enforcement. They are officers, just like deputy sheriffs and everybody else on the streets. They are officers, but they have a different jurisdiction. And they work within the walls, within the confines. But they do take people to the hospital, and they do have to drive people around. And there are things that they do on the streets as well. But it's a difficult job. I highly respect all of our Department of Corrections people here. I cannot say enough good. They were fabulous to work with. But the thing is, when you come in, I was an outsider, and now I'm coming in and I'm going to handle the media. So I need to learn about this agency, what we do, how we do it. I knew enough about corrections in the sense that I worked in a jail, but prison is different. There's a lot of differences. In the jail, people are hopeful because they haven't had their day in court yet. In a prison, they're done, and they're staying for 10, 20 years or 3 or whatever it is. You know, they're already sentenced. A lot of them have a lot less to lose, so they're more likely to act up. So you have all sorts of different rules in prison. It's a whole different entity, but it's fascinating. And so working with the prison, I loved it. I loved everything about it because it was just so much fun and so interesting. And I had enough of a handle on what jail was like to understand some of the prison, but boy, did I get a lesson. Some of those wardens were so wonderful, the way they would explain things to me so then I could take it to the media and explain it to them.
Oh, okay.
So you got to know who to talk to, who to put in front of the media, who to do interviews, whatever. It's not always about the public information officer doing the interview. A lot of times it's about somebody else. Whoever has the expertise should be the one in front of the camera.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what a PIO does.
Oh, okay.
Figures it out and then make sure that we get the right information and accurate information to the public without something like, there's HIPAA and there's all these laws that you can't talk about certain things and it's okay. That's what we do. So anyway, I am then in the Department of Corrections and I have my office and we have the OJ hearing coming up where he was going to be in front of the board trying to find out if he was going to get paroled. So that was a massive undertaking. And thank goodness our parole board, I worked with a guy named David Smith who was fantastic. And he just took it by the reins. It was his baby, really. I was just a supplement. You know, I had to control things on my end as a Lovelock Correctional Center, but it was their hearing.
Okay.
And so I had to just make sure that our inmate was there and that everybody was in place and that we had law and order going on in Lovelock. And we did. It was a lot of fun. So I'm driving out to meet O.J. Simpson. So I know enough about him to know that I didn't expect him to have a lot of respect for me, but I was a small, blonde female coming in that's going to tell him what we're going to do for his hearing.
Oh.
So I thought this might not go well. It might go well. I had no reason to think that he was going to be a jerk to me or anything, but I also, you just know from the history, and this guy's had this big life and big downfall. And I just knew that coming in, I needed to do a few things. One was I didn't want to ask him any questions because that would give him power. I needed to hold all the power. So I needed to not giggle. I needed to not blush. I needed to not do any of those things that people do when they meet a big name. I'm not one that's starstruck at all. So it wasn't a problem for me, but I just wanted to make sure that I thought about it before I was in the position. Because if you don't think about these things, sometimes you're not on your game. And one thing about being an officer that I learned is officer presence is so important when you're dealing with an inmate, if any prisoner in jail or in prison, it doesn't matter. You have to have officer presence. And now I was no longer an officer, but I had the presence of mind to think about this. I need to stand up straight. I need to sit up straight. I need to really have a command of what's going to happen. So I'm driving out to Lovelock in my car and I'm thinking about this and I'm getting nervous because I don't want to screw this up. And I'm driving along and I get there, we go in and we sit in this little tiny, it's like a closet really. It was a tiny little space. There was a desk and a chair in there. Now in the animal kingdom, if you're higher, you have more clout, right?
Okay.
So I sat on the desk. I thought, I'm going to sit as high as I can. So I have the height in the room. And when he came in, you never shake an inmate's hand. That's just known. As an officer, I knew that. That's just something that you're not supposed to do because it gives them the element of they can pull on you. They then have the upper hand.
Okay.
And you never want to give them that. So you don't reach out to them to shake hands or anything like that. He was perfect. He came in. He sat down, and I was sitting on the desk. We had another couple people in the room, wardens and associate wardens, and I said, my name is Brooke. I am the public information officer here at the prisons. And quite frankly, lately, I'm feeling like your personal secretary. I'd like to get you out of here. What do you say? And he immediately says, yes, which is what I wanted.
Okay.
I want him to say, yes, absolutely. I said, here's what we're going to do. And so I start telling him, we're going to have this happen, that happen. I already knew that we had tents that we were going to set up. ABC News had already agreed to come in and deck those. They were Army tents. They were big. They had air conditioning in them. They had electricity. So we could set them up, and they were going to come put monitors up, and we would put desks in there, and then all of the reporters, because we knew we were going to have about 150 people in the parking lot of Lovelock, would be able to go into those tents, see what was happening in Carson City at the parole board, and see what was happening inside Lovelock at the prison, because nobody was allowed in the room but one media source, and that was going to be ABC, and we went with the local ABC affiliate.
Oh, okay.
So because I knew them and I trusted them.
Okay.
And so I did not allow anybody else in, just them. We had one reporter and we had one photographer. It was the governor's photographer, actually.
Oh.
And I thought that would be great. But then some of the media was like, well, we can't take the government photography. We need to have a reporter in there or a photographer from media. So just so happened that outside we had the Reno Gazette-Journal there. These guys, it was Associated Press, and they were trying to get their people in. And I'm like, well, no. But we do have another local, Reno Gazette-Journal, and you always work with the locals when you can because, number one, you have a relationship with them. They need you to feed them information, and you need them to tell your story. So there's a relationship there, and I trust them. And our local media They're fabulous. I have never had a problem ever. And I've been a PIO for like 6-7 years between the two agencies. Never had a problem ever with local media. They were fantastic. So I was good. I had it down. So anyway, we brought in the RGJ guy, and that was great. So we had that was just a very small group of people there representing the media in the room. And so I explained all this to OJ. He's like, that's fine. And I said that we were going to have the fellow that actually was the Metro police officer that arrested him, that started this whole thing that actually put him in prison. Okay. He was going to be in the room. And I said, I gave him the okay, and so anyway, whatever, nobody cared. Everything was fine. I left. I was very happy with that meeting. I never asked any questions besides, let's get you out of here. What do you say? And it worked. And everything, I got everything I wanted, and I was very pleased. Got back to the office, and the next day I get a phone call, and my assistant was looking at me. She's like, I think it's OJ on the phone. I said, what? So we listened, and it says, you have a phone call from Nevada Department of Corrections, Lovelock Correctional Center. It is Orenthal. Like, oh my God, it is OJ. So I grab, hey OJ, what is it? And he goes, you can't have that officer in the room. He's like, my sister's going to lose it. There was all kinds of issues at the trial and da-da-da-da. And he's going on and on and on. And I said, well, here's the deal. That's fine. This is your hearing. That's absolutely fine. Nobody has to be in there if there's going to be an issue with your family, because he had so many spaces that he could have family there.
And this was the arresting officer?
It was.
Oh, okay.
And he had since retired and become a pastor up in Oregon.
Oh.
So he was going to come down. So he was going to come down. Well, it turns out it was a really good move. He actually was he was working with A&E to do a special, and he thought he was going to bring in A&E and all of these people. I'm like, oh my God, no. So it turned out to be really good, because then I had to research this guy and find out that he was writing a book, and he had been working with this other media source. And I'm like, no. If somebody wasn't vetted through our parole office, nobody came on our site. And we had a number of media sources, and I don't know if they really were or if they weren't, doesn't matter, that had not done the homework, had not sent in the application and been vetted through our group, and we did not let them in. And I had some people yelling some pretty obnoxious things at me that day because I would not let them on the site. But the thing is, we have, as the officers there and the warden and his team had done a risk assessment, and the number one risk that we had would have been like a lone shooter. The last thing I need, because somebody would want to make a name for themselves and do something crazy like that. Or they could be, because Lovelock is like in a little valley there. And we were on it. We were looking everywhere. We were so diligent to make sure that everything for safety was taken care of. And nobody was going to break that. So I had all sorts of people trying to get on site, and we were like, sorry. So sorry. One guy was furious, calling me every name in the book. I'm like, well, I'm really glad that you're not coming on site.
Yeah, right.
Sorry. He's like, you don't understand. I followed OJ my whole life, and I've done all this reporting, and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I'm really sorry. You needed to call and get vetted, and you didn't. So bye-bye. So yeah, there was a lot of people turned away.
Yeah.
Really interesting time. I had a great time doing this. Yeah. It's another fun thing was when ABC, NBC, and CBS showed up to find their locations in the parking lot. MSNBC, ESPN, everybody was there. Everybody was there. And so when CNN came, the main one that we wanted to work with was ABC, because they were the ones that said, we're going to deck all this stuff out. And ABC News was fantastic. They came, they really went to town in those tents. They had multiple monitors hanging from the top, and they had all this spaces so that the reporters could come in and sit and plug in and watch the whole thing right in front of them. So we didn't have people trying to manipulate their way into the jail or prison or whatever, Okay. So anyway, ABC News comes early and NBC News comes early, and we decided where they would be and where their trucks would be and how were they going to use their whatever it is on those trucks to get to beam. I don't know how it works, right. Those big satellite things, and they beam all their information out. I don't know. So we had all these trucks coming. Well, CBS didn't come for a couple of days. And this is not our local. I'm talking about national.
Oh, okay.
Because our CBS local is fabulous, fabulous. But the national comes out, and the lady was very demanding. And she's like, well, we want to be here, and we want to do this, and we want to do that. And I said, no, I'm sorry, but ABC is going to be there because they are helping us with this. And this lady says, I don't think you understand. We're CBS News. And I said, I don't think you understand. We don't care. We didn't invite you here, and you can take all your toys and go home. And it was so much fun to see her face. Because the truth is, we didn't care if they were there.
Yeah, right.
It's not about them. But her face, nobody talked to them like that. It was so much fun.
I love it.
It was great. But they were very good after that. They never gave me any more garbage, and everybody got along, and that day went super smooth. I did interviews with MSNBC and CNN, a bunch of them. And you just walk along, it's kind of like 2020, you're walking along the side of the, they always do these dramatic, you're in the fencing is in the back and the prison's in the back, and you're walking along talking about something weird. Like what is his dinner today or something. You're just like, I don't know. Yeah. Bizarre. Super weird. But it was fun. It was fun. And I was in the room with him when they did the hearing, and we didn't know if he was going to get parole or not. Took a week, I think, and they came back with a response. But we did, everything went without a hitch. We had no problems. And I think it was because we were so diligent and we were so careful, and we didn't take unnecessary risks. Because this is serious stuff. This is major networks and major inmates, and everything was a big deal. So, but yeah, at the end, when we let him out, that was super fun.
Okay.
I'll tell you that story.
Okay.
So I'm driving there, and I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I had called in the morning, and I had gotten OJ taken off our website. Now, I had to get the IT people to do that, because the thing is, with any inmate, if they're going to be paroled in Las Vegas, then we want them to be released in Las Vegas, because they go immediately to their parole officer and they have a meeting with them. That's the first thing they do after they get out, if they're out on parole.
Oh, okay.
So I kept saying, and the truth is, I really didn't know exactly what they were going to do, because the agency doesn't have to tell me. They can do whatever they want. So what happened was, I believed that they were going to release him. We wanted to get him out as soon as we possibly could, which was October 1, and it was at midnight. So the 12:01 was the time we could get him out, October 1. That was the number one moment that he could go. So we were ready. But I had told the media the week before, because they were all up at Lovelock, and we can't just, safety-wise, how do you walk someone out, get them in a van, and have them traipse through this little town with all this other media vehicles trying to drive up next to them and take a picture?
Okay.
It just doesn't make sense. So we really needed to do it quietly, and we needed to do it with him just under the radar. So I had mentioned to the Associated Press and other organizations, other media outlets, that if we treat him like any other inmate, which we had, as far as we were concerned at that point, we would release him out of High Desert State Prison on Monday. And that's what I suggested. And so they all got their stuff together and went down to High Desert State Prison.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted. I was really happy that they did that, because we knew we weren't going to take him to High Desert State Prison, because it's 8 to 10 hour drive. Why would we do that? It makes no sense. So with a high profile inmate, it only takes him one time. He has to stop and go to the bathroom or something. And that's silly. That makes no sense. But they weren't thinking like a prison would. But anyway, we got, the media was out of the way, and I'm driving out to Lovelock. I turned off all my phones, because I didn't know if they had any way to know, there's all that. They don't, but I didn't know it at the time, that if they could tell where I was going, because you do have, your phones have that location service in there. And I was like, oh God. So I turned everything off, and I called and had him taken off the website. So I get immediately CNN, Fox News. Those two used to call me every single day, multiple times a day for months. And they call, oh my gosh, he's off what does that mean? Well, if he's not in a facility, we can't say where he is, because we don't know, because he's not in a facility, right? So to me, it looks like he's being transported.
Okay.
I don't know. Can't tell you for sure. Nobody called me to tell me this. And he's like, okay, that's what I said. And I just kept driving out to Lovelock, knowing that he was sitting in Lovelock, and hoping to goodness that not one of the officers over there would make anybody aware of where he was. I was just like, oh, please, please, please. But nobody did. So I get out to Lovelock and I walk in with the associate warden. We go to his cell and we're like, and it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, because he's going to be leaving right at midnight. So I'm like, roll up your stuff. You're out of here. He's like, oh, I've been waiting for that. So he starts talking to Mileman about what he wants to eat and where he wants to go. And quite frankly, I'm not paying no attention at all because I don't care. I'm talking to the associate warden. We're just super happy that there's nobody in the parking lot. There was one little reporter from ABC News out there still. But at one point, she asked one of the officers to go out and check on him. And he thought it was the van with OJ in it. So he got in his truck and followed the van. And he was gone when we actually released him.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I was like, well, he was smart to stay, but still missed it. So when we finally walk him out, I had promised the media that I said, if I'm there, because quite frankly, truly, they could have done anything. They could have released him anytime. I didn't necessarily have to be there. They did keep me in the loop, but I don't know. They didn't have to. So I said, if I'm there when they release him, I will take a video and I'll put it on our Facebook page and I will give everybody the rights to it. You can use it. And they're like, okay. So we're walking him down the hall. He had like tons of boxes of stuff, like I think 6 or 8 big boxes of junk that he was taking with him. I'm like, what do you need from here?
Yeah.
Why do you need, how many shower shoes do you have, dude? What are you saving that you... He says, they're making me take all my stuff. And then I realized that any item of his would have been huge to sell on the yard for whatever. It would have been like some really marketable thing.
Okay.
So they could have been using it as some sort of coinage, like it was money. And that would have been a big deal. So I thought, okay, that's really smart that they made him take everything. So okay. So, and he has a white SUV out there, and they load it all up. It's a really nice one. I don't know what it was, Escalade or something like that. And so I said to him, I go, oh, we have a beautiful Bronco out front. It's white. You're going to love it. And he goes, that's not funny. I go, that's funny. And I'm laughing. He goes, that's not funny. I go, that's hilarious. He goes, okay, I'll give you a little bit. That's a little funny. I thought it was hysterical. Bad humor.
I love it.
Anyway.
I love it.
He was actually never rude or anything with me. He was always fine.
Okay.
Just, on mark, exactly how he should be. So anyway, we walked out. We're standing outside. And there's one more gate to get through. And then there was a little entryway that we had to go through a building.
Okay.
So we're at the gate, and I'm thinking, oh my God, some media source has to have a drone out here. Somebody knows we're doing this. And I'm like looking up, and he's getting all philosophical. He's like, hey, I've dreamt about this moment for the past few years, and I'm like, do you hear anything? Do you see anything? He goes, like what? I go, like a drone. And he's been in there so long, he doesn't really know what that means.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. He was like, they were really new. I believe this was, 2017?
Oh, okay.
Something like that. So anyway, it was just funny. And so I was like, oh my God. There was nothing. There was no sound. There was nothing. So I knew we were clean. No media found us. Nobody knew what we were up to. So we walk him out, and I said, wait right there before we come out the last door. I need to take a video. He goes, are you kidding me? You're going to make me wait? I go, you are. Yes, I am. Just like your kid on the first day of school. Wait right there. I need a picture. So I ran outside. I turn on my little iPhone. I said, okay, come on out. He walks out. He puts his papers up by his face, and he walks on, and I did not want to get any picture of the vehicle he was getting into, so I turned it off. Okay. So anyway, he gets in the vehicle. We knew that there could be somebody on the street, so we sent him on a back road. So we had a guy that was a local officer in a van that knew the back way to the freeway. So he was in his vehicle with there were 3 men that came to pick him up. Okay. And they all took off behind the van, and our officer led him through this desert area to get him to the freeway. So the associate warden and I hopped in her car, and we drove like crazy to get over to the freeway so we could watch. So we're waiting. We're right next to the on-ramp. We're sitting there, we're waiting, and we're just like nervous.
Uh-huh.
And we see, here comes the van goes by, and here comes OJ's vehicle. And it comes, and nobody's behind it. It turns to get on the freeway. It goes farther and farther away. It gets smaller and smaller, and nobody is the wiser. Nobody pulled up behind or any of that. So we knew we had done it. We had released him with nobody knowing.
Isn't that it?
And then I called the boss, and I said, the juice is loose. He said, as of what time? 12:08. He's like, thank you. I will call the governor and let him know. And that was the end of it. Then I talked to all the media. I had to call them, and they were not happy. Not happy at all. They were furious. Yeah. So, but it had one of them, had we had one there, the others could have sued because it was such a big story that we had eliminated them out of the story or what have you. We didn't have anybody there. So we did it exactly the right way. I never even thought about that they could sue us for not giving them a story.
Yeah.
But that's what they claimed anyway. The next day, they were so angry. It was great. It was great because I knew I did it right. Because it was about the safety of the people of Lovelock. It wasn't about them at all. It was about getting our inmate out safely, but mainly it was about the people of Lovelock not getting run over walking to school because somebody wants a picture of OJ in a van. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it was about to me. Was I knew that we needed to get him out quietly so that it didn't disturb our community. And it didn't. And then I was happy as clown. I didn't get to bed that night till like 3. I was so excited.